The autumn wind carried golden leaves through the streets of Vienna as the sun began to set behind the old buildings. The Vienna Grand Concert Hall stood tall and proud in the heart of the city. Its white marble walls had seen hundreds of years of music, of laughter, of tears, and of dreams both made and broken. Tonight was special. The annual charity gala was about to begin, and the richest people in the city were arriving in their finest clothes. Women wore long dresses that sparkled under the lights. Men walked in with expensive suits and shiny shoes. Cameras flashed outside as journalists tried to capture every famous face. Inside the hall, workers rushed around like busy ants. They carried flowers, adjusted microphones, and checked every small detail. Everything had to be perfect. The charity gala raised money for children's hospitals, and the donors expected nothing less than excellence. At exactly 6:30 in the evening, a long black car stopped at the main entrance. The driver quickly jumped out and opened the back door. A woman stepped out, and the crowd outside immediately began to whisper her name, Elena Ashworth. She was 42 years old, but she looked younger. Her blonde hair was pulled back in an elegant style. Her blue eyes were cold and sharp, like pieces of ice. She wore a dark red dress that flowed behind her like a river of blood. Around her neck hung a diamond necklace worth more than most people earned in 10 years. Elena was not just any pianist. She was considered one of the greatest in the world. She had played in every major concert hall on every continent. Critics called her a genius. Magazines put her face on their covers. Young piano students dreamed of being like her one day, but those who worked with Elena knew another side of her. She was difficult. She was demanding. She believed she was better than everyone around her, and she made sure everyone knew it. Her assistants changed every few months because nobody could handle her sharp tongue and cruel words. Tonight, Elena would perform 3 pieces at the gala. She would earn 50,000 euros for 1 hour of work. To her, this was a small event, almost beneath her talents. But her manager had insisted. It was good for her image, he said. It showed she cared about charity. Elena walked into the concert hall with her team following behind her. There was her manager, a nervous man named Frederick who always sweated too much. There was her assistant, a young woman named Sophie who carried Elena's water, her phone, and her endless list of demands. And there were 2 others who handled her makeup and her dress. As Elena entered the backstage area, she looked around with disgust on her face. "The lighting is wrong," she said sharply. "I specifically asked for warm tones, not this cold white light. Fix it immediately." Frederick nodded quickly and ran to find the lighting technician. Elena continued walking, her heels clicking loudly on the floor. She passed a small woman who was mopping near the storage room. Elena did not even glance at her. Why would she? The woman was nobody, just a cleaner, invisible. But if Elena had looked, she might have noticed something interesting about this cleaner. She might have seen the way the old woman's hands moved with unusual grace. She might have noticed how the woman's eyes seemed to hold secrets, deep and old and sad. The cleaner's name was Maria Kowalski. She was 62 years old, with gray hair pulled back in a simple bun. Her face had many wrinkles, each one telling a story of years lived and tears cried. She wore the plain blue uniform of the cleaning staff, and on her feet were comfortable shoes that made no sound when she walked. Maria had worked at the Vienna Grand Concert Hall for 8 years. Every day, she arrived before anyone else and left after everyone had gone home. She mopped floors, cleaned bathrooms, dusted chairs, and picked up the trash that careless visitors left behind. She did her job quietly and never complained. Nobody paid attention to Maria. To the performers and the guests, she was like a ghost. They walked past her without seeing her. They talked about private things in front of her as if she could not hear. They never said thank you when she held open a door or cleaned up their mess. Maria did not mind being invisible. In fact, she preferred it. Being seen meant being noticed. Being noticed meant answering questions. And questions led to places Maria did not want to go. Her past was a locked room in her heart, and she had thrown away the key long ago. Tonight, as she mopped the floor near the backstage area, Maria could hear Elena giving orders and making demands. She could hear the fear in the voices of Elena's staff. She could feel the tension in the air. Maria shook her head slowly. She had seen many performers come through these halls. Some were kind and humble. Others were proud and cruel. Elena Ashworth was clearly the second type. Maria had learned to recognize such people. They walked as if the ground should feel honored to be touched by their feet. They spoke as if their words were gifts to the world. Maria finished mopping and moved her bucket to the next area. As she worked, she glanced at the grand piano on the stage. It was a Steinway, one of the finest pianos ever made. Its black surface shone like a mirror. Its keys were perfect white and black, waiting to be touched, waiting to sing. Something stirred in Maria's chest when she looked at that piano. It was a feeling she had not allowed herself to feel for many years. It was a mix of longing and pain, of love and loss. She quickly looked away and continued her work. Meanwhile, Elena had found her dressing room and was examining it with a critical eye. The room was nice by any normal standard. It had fresh flowers, a comfortable couch, a large mirror with good lighting, and a table with fruits and expensive water. But Elena was not satisfied. "Where are the white roses I requested?" she demanded. "These are pink. I specifically said white. And this water is not the brand I drink. Do I have to do everything myself?" Sophie apologized and rushed out to fix the problems. Frederick wiped sweat from his forehead and tried to calm Elena down. "Everything will be perfect for your performance," he promised. "You will be magnificent as always." Elena looked at herself in the mirror. "Of course I will be," she said. "I am Elena Ashworth. I am always magnificent." In another part of the building, Maria was now cleaning near the stage. The hall was beginning to fill with guests. She watched them from her corner. These wealthy people with their expensive clothes and confident smiles. They laughed and talked and held glasses of champagne. Maria wondered what it would feel like to be one of them, but only for a moment. Then she returned to her work. The floor was dirty near the entrance. Someone had tracked in mud from outside. It was her job to clean it, and she would do it well. As Maria worked, she hummed quietly to herself. It was an old melody, something from her childhood. She did not even realize she was doing it. The music simply lived inside her, coming out in small ways even when she tried to keep it locked away. A young stagehand named Thomas walked by and paused. He heard the melody and found it beautiful. He looked at the old cleaning woman and wondered about her story. But he had work to do, so he moved on. The concert hall continued to fill. The evening was about to begin. Elena Ashworth prepared for her performance, confident that the night would belong to her. She had no idea how wrong she was. The grand hall was now almost full. Over 800 guests had taken their seats, their voices creating a low hum of conversation. The chandeliers above sparkled like captured stars. The stage was set, the lights were adjusted, and everything seemed ready for a wonderful evening. Behind the stage, Elena Ashworth was preparing for her sound check. This was a routine she followed before every performance. She needed to test the piano, feel its keys, and make sure everything was exactly right. Elena believed that a sound check was not just about checking sound. It was about connecting with the instrument, about making it understand who was in control. She walked onto the stage from the side entrance. The guests did not see her yet because a large curtain separated the stage from the audience. Elena moved toward the piano like a queen approaching her throne. Her red dress flowed behind her, and her diamond necklace caught the light. The Steinway piano waited for her. It was a Model D, the largest and finest piano Steinway made. This particular instrument had been in the Vienna Grand Concert Hall for over 20 years. Some of the greatest pianists in history had played on it. The piano had a voice of its own, deep and rich and full of emotion. Elena sat down on the bench and adjusted it to her preferred height. She stretched her fingers, a habit she had developed over 30 years of playing. Then she placed her hands on the keys. She began to play a simple warm-up piece, just scales and basic exercises. The notes filled the backstage area with sound. Her team stood nearby, watching, knowing better than to interrupt. Everything seemed fine. The piano was in good condition, the keys responded well, and Elena was starting to feel satisfied. She decided to try part of the first piece she would perform tonight, a complicated work by Liszt that required fast and precise playing. Her fingers flew across the keys. The music grew louder and more intense. Elena closed her eyes and let herself get lost in the notes. This was when she felt most alive, when she was making music, when she was in control of something beautiful. And then it happened. A strange sound cut through the music. It was a sharp ping, followed by a buzzing vibration that ruined everything. Elena stopped playing immediately. Her eyes opened wide. "What was that?" she demanded. She pressed the key again. The sound was wrong. Instead of a clear, beautiful note, there was an ugly, dead noise. Something was very wrong with the piano. Frederick rushed forward. What happened? Is everything okay? Elena stood up quickly, her face showing anger and confusion. A string has broken, she said. The string has snapped. Can you not hear that horrible sound? She demonstrated by pressing the key again. The broken string made the piano sound sick and wounded. There was no way Elena could perform with the piano in this condition. That one broken string would ruin entire sections of her music. Frederick turned pale. He pulled out his phone and started making calls. The rest of the team began to panic. This was a disaster. The concert was supposed to start in less than 2 hours. Get the technician, Elena ordered. Get him here now. I am calling him, Frederick said, his hands shaking as he held the phone. He will come as fast as he can. Elena paced back and forth like a tiger in a cage. Her perfect evening was falling apart, and she could not stand it. She had performed hundreds of concerts, and nothing like this had ever happened. How dare this piano embarrass her? How dare this stupid instrument break at the worst possible moment? The call to the technician did not bring good news. Frederick's face grew even more worried as he listened. When he ended the call, he looked like he might cry. The technician is across the city, he reported. There has been a large accident on the main road. Traffic is completely stopped. He says he will try to come, but it might take 2 hours, maybe more. 2 hours? Elena's voice was like ice. The concert starts in 2 hours. What am I supposed to do? Play a broken piano? Look like a fool in front of 800 important people? Nobody had an answer. The team stood in helpless silence while Elena continued to pace and complain. In a corner near the storage room, Maria had been watching everything. She had heard the string break. She had seen the panic spread through Elena's team, and she knew, deep in her heart, that she could help. It was a strange feeling. For so many years, Maria had kept her past hidden. She had promised herself she would never go back to that world, never touch a piano again, never let the music pull her back into the light. But seeing the broken piano, hearing its wounded sound, something stirred inside her. Before she could stop herself, Maria set down her mop and walked toward the stage. Her heart was beating fast. Her hands were slightly shaking. She knew this was probably a mistake, but she could not help it. Excuse me, Maria said quietly. Her voice was soft and accented with her Polish roots. I think I can help. Elena stopped pacing and turned around. She looked at Maria as if she had just noticed a bug crawling on the floor. Her eyes traveled up and down, taking in Maria's cleaning uniform, her simple shoes, her gray hair, and her wrinkled face. Help? Elena repeated the word as if it tasted bad. Help with what? The piano, Maria said. I know about pianos. I can fix the string. I have done it before. For a moment, there was complete silence. Elena stared at Maria with an expression of disbelief. Then she laughed. It was not a kind laugh. It was sharp and cruel, like broken glass. You? Elena said. A cleaning woman? You think you can fix a Steinway concert grand? Do you even know how much this piano is worth? Yes, Maria said quietly. I know exactly what it is worth. Elena looked at her team, and they laughed nervously with her. Sophie covered her mouth, trying to hide her smile. Frederick looked uncomfortable but said nothing. Listen, old woman, Elena said, walking toward Maria with slow, deliberate steps. This is not some cheap piano in a school. This is a professional instrument. It requires professional care. You push a mop for a living. You clean toilets. What could you possibly know about music? The words hit Maria like stones. She felt her face grow hot. She wanted to turn around and walk away, to return to her invisible life and forget she had ever spoken. But something kept her standing there. I only want to help, Maria said. The technician will not arrive in time. I can fix it. I promise I will not damage anything. Elena stepped even closer. She was taller than Maria, and she used her height to look down at the old woman. Her perfume was strong and expensive, and it filled the air between them. Let me make something very clear, Elena said in a low, dangerous voice. I do not need help from someone like you. I do not want your dirty hands anywhere near my piano. You are a janitor. You are nothing. Your job is to clean floors and stay out of the way. So go back to your mop, old woman, and let the professionals handle this. A few of the stagehands nearby heard everything. Some of them laughed. Others looked away, embarrassed by Elena's cruelty but too afraid to say anything. Maria stood very still. Her eyes met Elena's for just a moment. There was something in Maria's look that Elena did not understand. It was not shame or embarrassment. It was something deeper, something sadder, something that had seen more of life than Elena could imagine. "As you wish," Maria said softly. She turned and walked back to her mop and bucket. Her steps were slow and heavy. The laughter followed her, echoing off the walls of the backstage area. When Maria reached her corner, she picked up her mop with trembling hands. A single tear rolled down her cheek, but she quickly wiped it away. She had survived worse than cruel words. She had survived things that would break most people. This was nothing, but still, it hurt. It hurt more than she expected, not because of the insults, but because of the piano, the beautiful, broken piano that was crying out for help, and nobody would let her answer its call. Back on stage, Elena had returned to pacing and complaining. The team was making more phone calls, trying to find another technician, another solution, anything that would save the evening. The clock was ticking, and the guests were waiting. Thomas, the young stagehand, watched Maria walk away. He had seen the whole thing, and his heart ached for the old woman. There was something about her that did not fit. The way she had spoken about the piano, the certainty in her voice, the knowledge in her eyes. She was not just a cleaner. He was sure of it. He looked at Elena, still yelling and blaming everyone around her. Then he looked at Maria, quietly mopping in her corner, her shoulders slightly bent with a weight he could not see. Something was wrong with this picture, and Thomas was determined to find out what it was. Thomas could not stop thinking about what he had witnessed. The cruelty in Elena's voice kept playing in his mind like a song stuck on repeat. He was only 24 years old, but he had been working at the concert hall for 3 years. In that time, he had seen many famous performers. Some were kind, some were strange, and a few were difficult. But he had never seen anyone treat another person the way Elena had treated Maria. The backstage area was still full of chaos. Elena's team was running around, making phone calls, sending messages, doing everything they could to find a solution. Elena herself had gone back to her dressing room, refusing to come out until someone fixed what she called this unacceptable situation. Thomas finished moving some equipment and found himself with a few free minutes. Instead of taking a break like the other stagehands, he went looking for Maria. He did not know why exactly. He just felt that someone should check on her. He found her in a small storage room near the back of the building. The room was filled with cleaning supplies, extra chairs, and old decorations from past events. Maria was sitting on an overturned bucket, her mop leaning against the wall beside her. Her face was turned away, but Thomas could see her shoulders shaking slightly. He knocked gently on the open door. "Excuse me, Mrs. Maria?" Maria quickly wiped her face with the back of her hand and stood up. "Yes? Do you need something? Is there a mess somewhere?" No, Thomas said quickly. "Nothing like that. I just wanted to see if you were okay. I saw what happened out there. The way that woman spoke to you. It was not right." Maria looked at him with surprise. People did not usually notice her, and they certainly did not come looking for her to ask how she felt. She did not know how to respond. "It is nothing," she said finally. "I am used to it. People like her see people like me as furniture. We are useful but not important." Thomas shook his head. "That does not make it okay. You were trying to help. She had no right to speak to you like that." Maria studied the young man's face. He had kind eyes and an honest expression. He reminded her of someone from long ago, someone she had loved very much. The memory brought a fresh wave of pain to her heart. "Thank you," she said softly. "You are kind, but please, do not worry about me. I am fine. I have survived much worse than sharp words." Thomas leaned against the doorframe. He was curious now. There was a mystery here, and he wanted to understand it. "Can I ask you something?" he said. Maria hesitated, then nodded. "When you offered to fix the piano, you sounded so certain, like you really knew what you were talking about. And the way you looked at that Steinway, it was like you were looking at an old friend." He paused. "Do you really know about pianos?" For a long moment, Maria did not answer. She looked at her hands, turning them over slowly. They were the hands of a cleaner now, rough and worn from years of hard work. But once, they had been different. Once, they had danced across piano keys with the lightness of butterflies. "Yes," she finally said. "I know about pianos." "How?" Thomas asked gently. "Did you take lessons when you were young?" Maria let out a small laugh, but there was no joy in it. "You could say that. I took many lessons. I started when I was 4 years old. By the time I was 10, I was performing in concerts. By 15, I was playing with orchestras across Europe." Thomas's eyes widened. He had not expected this. "You were a concert pianist?" "I was," Maria said. The words came out heavy, like stones dropping into deep water. "A long time ago, in another life." "What happened?" Thomas asked, then quickly added, "I am sorry. You do not have to tell me. That was rude of me to ask." Maria shook her head. "No, it is all right. I have not talked about this in many years. Maybe it is time." She sat back down on the bucket, and Thomas found an old chair to sit on. The storage room was quiet, separated from the chaos of the backstage area. It felt like a safe place to share secrets. "I grew up in Warsaw, in Poland," Maria began. "My father was a music teacher. My mother loved to sing. Our small apartment was always full of music. When I was very young, my father noticed that I had a gift. I could hear a melody once and play it back perfectly. I could feel the music in my bones." She paused, her eyes looking at something far away, something Thomas could not see. "My parents sacrificed everything to give me the best education. We had very little money, but they found a way to pay for lessons with the finest teachers. They believed in me. They said I would be great someday." "And you were," Thomas said. "You said you performed across Europe." "Yes," Maria nodded. "By the time I was 20, people called me a prodigy. Critics said I had a gift from God. I was invited to play at the most famous concert halls in the world. I played for presidents and kings. I won awards and competitions. I had everything a musician could want." Thomas was amazed. This tired old cleaning woman had once been a star. It seemed impossible. And yet, looking at her hands, at the grace with which they moved even now, he could almost see it. "Then I fell in love," Maria continued. "His name was Andre. He was a cellist, not as famous as me, but talented and kind. He had the warmest smile I had ever seen. We married when I was 25. 2 years later, we had a daughter. We named her Katya." Maria's voice began to shake. Thomas wanted to tell her she could stop, that she did not have to continue, but something told him that Maria needed to say these words, that they had been locked inside her for too long. "Katya was the most beautiful child," Maria whispered. "She had her father's smile and my love of music. By the time she was 3, she was already trying to play the piano. I would sit her on my lap and let her press the keys. She would laugh with such joy. It was the happiest sound in the world." Tears were now flowing freely down Maria's face. She did not try to wipe them away. "When Katya was 5 years old, we went on a trip. I had a concert in Prague, and I wanted my family with me. Andre drove while I sat in the back with Katya. We were singing songs together, silly songs that she loved. It was a beautiful day. The sun was shining. Everything was perfect." Maria stopped. She closed her eyes tight, as if trying to block out what came next. A truck driver fell asleep at the wheel. He crossed into our lane. Andre tried to avoid him, but there was no time. The crash was terrible. I was injured badly, but I survived. My husband and my daughter did not. Thomas felt his heart break. He could not imagine such pain. He wanted to reach out and comfort her, but he did not know how. "After that, I could not play anymore," Maria said, her voice barely a whisper. "Every time I touched a piano, I heard Katya's laugh. I saw Andre's smile. The music that had been my whole life became a knife that cut me over and over again. So I stopped. I left everything behind. I changed my name slightly, moved away from everyone who knew me, and I disappeared." "And you came here," Thomas said. "Eventually, yes. I worked many jobs over the years. Cleaning was the easiest. Nobody asks questions. Nobody looks too closely. I became invisible, which is what I wanted. For 35 years, I have hidden from my past. I never told anyone who I used to be." Thomas sat in stunned silence. This woman, this cleaner who everyone ignored, had once been one of the greatest pianists in the world. She had experienced incredible fame and unimaginable loss, and now she mopped floors in the same concert halls where she had once received standing ovations. "I am sorry," Thomas finally said. "I am so very sorry for everything you have lost." Maria looked at him with grateful eyes. "Thank you for listening. I have not spoken these words out loud in many years. It feels strange, but also, somehow, it feels good." Thomas nodded. He understood that Maria had given him a great gift by sharing her story. He would keep it safe. "Mrs. Maria," he said carefully, "you offered to fix the piano tonight. Do you think you really could?" Maria wiped her face and took a deep breath. "Yes, I know I could. Fixing a broken string is not complicated if you know what you are doing. I have done it many times before. Then why not try again? Maybe they will listen this time." Maria shook her head sadly. "You saw how that woman treated me. She will never let me near that piano. And maybe that is for the best. Some doors should stay closed." Thomas wanted to argue, but he could see how tired Maria looked. She had just opened a wound that had been healing for 35 years. He would not push her any more tonight. "The music is still inside you," he said as he stood to leave. "I heard you humming earlier. It was beautiful. Some things cannot be hidden forever, no matter how hard we try." Maria looked up at him with an expression he could not quite read. It was part surprise, part fear, and part something else. "Something like hope. Some hands that clean can also create," Thomas said softly. "Remember that." Then he left Maria alone with her memories and her tears. But his words stayed with her, echoing in the small room like the fading notes of a forgotten song. The clock on the wall showed 7:45. The charity gala was supposed to begin at 8:30. Less than 1 hour remained, and the piano was still broken. In the main hall, the guests were enjoying their champagne and conversation. They had no idea about the crisis happening behind the heavy curtains. They talked about business deals and vacation homes, about fashion and politics, completely unaware that the evening's main event was in serious danger. The event coordinator was a woman named Helena Berg. She had organized events at the Vienna Grand Concert Hall for over 15 years. She had handled demanding performers, last-minute changes, and unexpected problems of all kinds. But tonight was testing her like never before. Helena stood backstage with her phone pressed to her ear. She was speaking with the piano technician for the 5th time. "Please," she said, "is there any way you can get here faster? We have 800 guests waiting. The main performer cannot play on a broken instrument." The technician's voice came through the phone, tired and apologetic. "Mrs. Berg, I understand, but I am stuck in traffic. There was a major accident on the highway. 4 cars and a bus. The road is completely blocked. I have not moved in 30 minutes. Helena closed her eyes and tried to stay calm. "How long do you think?" "At least another hour. Maybe 90 minutes. I am so sorry. There is nothing I can do." Helena ended the call and leaned against the wall. Her mind raced through possible solutions. Could they get another piano? No. There was no time. Could Helena perform without the broken string? No. The piece she had chosen used every key. Could they delay the concert? The donors would not be happy. But maybe it was the only option. She walked toward Elena's dressing room to deliver the bad news. When she knocked on the door, a sharp voice called out, "What is it now?" Helena entered carefully. Elena was sitting in front of the mirror, her makeup perfect, her dress stunning, her expression furious. Sophie stood in the corner, looking like she wanted to disappear into the wall. "The technician called again," Helena said. "There is a serious accident blocking the highway. He will not be here for at least another hour." Elena stood up so quickly that her chair fell backward. "Another hour? The concert is supposed to start in 45 minutes. What am I supposed to do? Stand on stage and explain to everyone that I cannot play because you people cannot keep a piano in working condition? I am exploring all options," Helena said, keeping her voice steady. "We might need to delay the program. Perhaps we can extend the cocktail hour, rearrange the schedule." "Delay? Rearrange?" Elena's voice rose higher. "Do you have any idea who I am? I do not delay. I do not rearrange. I am Elena Ashworth. My performances start on time. Every time. This is your problem, not mine. Fix it." Helena took a deep breath. She had dealt with difficult artists before, but Elena was something special. The woman seemed to have no understanding that problems could not always be solved immediately. Mrs. Ashworth, I understand your frustration, but some things are beyond our control. The technician will arrive as soon as possible. In the meantime, I suggest we find a way to keep the guests entertained. Elena waved her hand dismissively. I do not care about entertaining the guests. I care about my performance being perfect. Find another technician. Find another piano. Do something. Helena nodded and left the room before she said something she would regret. She walked through the backstage area, her mind still searching for solutions. That was when she saw Maria. The cleaning woman was working quietly near the storage area, organizing some supplies. Helena had seen her around for years but had never really paid attention to her. Just another member of the invisible workforce that kept the concert hall running. But something made Helena stop. A memory surfaced in her mind. Earlier that evening, before all the chaos, she had overheard a conversation. The cleaning woman had offered to fix the piano. Elena had laughed at her and sent her away. Helena hesitated. It was probably nothing. Why would a janitor know anything about fixing a concert piano? But at this point, Helena was desperate. She had nothing to lose by asking. Excuse me, Helena said, walking toward Maria. Maria, is it? Maria looked up, surprised that someone knew her name. Yes? Can I help you with something? Helena looked around to make sure nobody was listening. Then she spoke in a low voice. I heard that earlier. You offered to help with the piano. You said you knew how to fix it. Was that true? Maria's expression changed. A shadow passed over her face, followed by something that looked like fear. She remembered the humiliation she had faced, the cruel laughter, the terrible words. I did offer, Maria said carefully. But the pianist made it clear that my help was not wanted. I understand, Helena said, and I apologize for how she treated you. But I am asking you now, directly, can you really fix a broken string on a Steinway concert grand? Maria was quiet for a long moment. She could feel her heart beating in her chest. This was exactly what she had feared. The past was trying to pull her back, and she had spent 35 years running from it. But she also remembered the piano. That beautiful instrument, crying out in pain, waiting for someone to heal it. She remembered how much she had once loved working on pianos, understanding their complex inner workings, bringing them back to perfect condition. Yes, Maria finally said. I can fix it. The string that broke is likely the G below middle C. It makes a certain sound when it snaps. Replacing it is not difficult if you have the right tools and know what you are doing. I would need about 15 minutes. Helena stared at her. The woman spoke with complete confidence. She used technical terms correctly. She even identified which string had broken without having examined the piano. How do you know which string it was? Helena asked. I heard it break, Maria said simply. Each string has its own voice. After many years, you learn to recognize them. Helena felt a spark of hope. This was not an ordinary cleaning woman. There was something in her eyes, in her hands, in the way she talked about the piano. This woman knew things. Mrs. Ashworth will not be happy, Helena said. She specifically told you to stay away from the piano. Maria nodded. I know. I do not want to cause problems. Helena made a decision. She was the event coordinator. This event was her responsibility. If she had to go around Elena to save the evening, then that was what she would do. What if I give you permission? Helena asked. What if I bring you to the piano myself and let you try? Can you fix it? Maria looked into Helena's eyes. She saw desperation there, but also something else. Respect. For the first time that evening, someone was looking at her like a person, not like a piece of furniture. Yes, Maria said. I can fix it, but you need to understand something. What? Maria took a deep breath. I can do more than fix the piano. I can play it. I used to play it professionally, many years ago. If the string cannot be fixed in time, I could play in her place. Helena's mouth fell open. You? You were a professional pianist? I was, Maria said. A long time ago, before I became who I am now. Helena did not know what to say. This night had taken the strangest turn. A cleaning woman who used to be a concert pianist? It sounded like something from a movie, not real life. But Helena was a practical woman. She had learned to judge people by their actions, not their appearance. And something about Maria made her believe. Come with me, Helena said. Let us see what you can do. Maria set down the supplies she was organizing. Her hands were trembling slightly. She was about to step back into a world she had left behind decades ago. She was terrified, but she was also, in some small corner of her heart, excited. The music had never truly left her. It had been sleeping inside her all these years, waiting for this moment, waiting to wake up. As Maria followed Helena toward the stage, Thomas watched from a distance. He saw the determination on Maria's face, and he smiled. Maybe some doors were meant to be opened again after all. They walked through the backstage area, past boxes of equipment and racks of costumes. The sounds of the audience filtered through the walls, hundreds of voices mixing together. The piano waited on stage, silent and wounded. Helena pulled back a corner of the heavy curtain, just enough for them to slip through without being seen. They walked across the stage in the dim light, their footsteps soft on the polished wood. And there it was, the Steinway. Its black surface gleamed like dark water under moonlight. It was one of the most beautiful instruments Maria had ever seen. She stood before it, afraid to move closer. 35 years of silence, 35 years of running. And now she was face to face with her past, with her pain, with everything she had lost. "Can you do this?" Helena asked softly. Maria looked at the piano. She looked at her hands. She remembered Katya's laugh, Andrei's smile, the music that had once been her entire world. "Yes," she whispered. "I can do this." She reached out and touched the keys. They were cool and smooth under her fingertips. And in that moment, something inside Maria began to wake up. Maria stood before the open piano, looking at its inner workings with eyes that had not examined such a sight in over 3 decades. Helena had helped her lift the heavy lid, and now the strings stretched before them like the threads of a spider's web, each one precisely tuned to produce its specific note. The broken string was exactly where Maria had predicted. The G below middle C had snapped near its tuning pin. The coiled metal hung loose and useless, a wound in the heart of the instrument. "Can you fix it?" Helena asked, her voice tight with anxiety. Maria did not answer immediately. She ran her fingers along the surrounding strings, feeling their tension, checking their condition. It was like meeting an old friend after many years apart. The piano felt familiar despite the time that had passed. "Yes," Maria finally said, "but I need tools. A tuning hammer, replacement strings, wire cutters, and a felt mute." Helena nodded quickly. "The maintenance closet should have everything. I will get them. Wait here." She hurried off, leaving Maria alone with the piano. The curtain was still closed, separating the stage from the audience. Maria could hear the murmur of hundreds of voices beyond it, people waiting for entertainment, unaware of the drama unfolding just meters away. Maria looked at the keys. Her fingers hovered over them, not quite touching. She remembered the countless hours she had spent at instruments like this one. She remembered the concerts, the applause, the joy of creating something beautiful. And she remembered the silence that had followed the accident, the terrible silence that had replaced all the music in her life. A noise behind her made Maria turn around. Her heart dropped. Elena Ashworth was standing at the edge of the stage, her face twisted with anger. Sophie was behind her, looking terrified. "What do you think you are doing?" Elena's voice was low and dangerous. She walked toward Maria with slow, deliberate steps. "I thought I made myself clear. I told you to stay away from my piano." Maria straightened her spine. She was tired of feeling small, tired of being invisible, tired of letting people like Elena make her feel worthless. "Mrs. Ashworth," Maria said calmly, "the piano is broken. The technician is stuck in traffic. If someone does not fix it, there will be no concert tonight. And you think that someone should be you?" Elena laughed, but there was no humor in it. "A cleaning woman, touching a €200,000 instrument? Have you lost your mind? I know how to fix it. I have done this many times before." Elena stopped just a few feet from Maria. Up close, Maria could see the cracks in Elena's perfect makeup, the tension around her eyes, the fear hiding behind her anger. Elena was terrified. Her perfect evening was falling apart, and she did not know how to handle it. "You have done this before," Elena repeated mockingly. "And where exactly did you learn to repair concert pianos? At cleaning school? While mopping bathroom floors?" Before Maria could respond, Helena returned with the tools. She stopped short when she saw Elena. Mrs. Ashworth, Helena said carefully. I asked Maria to look at the piano. She says she can fix it. She says she can fix it, Elena mimicked. And you believed her? You brought this filthy janitor onto my stage, near my instrument, without my permission? Helena kept her voice professional despite the insult. With respect, Mrs. Ashworth, we have no other options. The technician will not arrive in time. The concert begins in 30 minutes. If the piano is not fixed, we will have to cancel your performance and refund hundreds of tickets. The word cancel hit Elena like a slap. Her face changed, the anger mixing with calculation. She looked at Maria with new eyes, still dismissive but now considering. You really think you can fix it? Elena asked Maria directly. I know I can fix it, Maria replied. Elena studied her for a long moment. Then she stepped closer, her expensive perfume filling the air between them. If you damage that piano in any way, Elena said slowly, I will make sure you never work in this city again. I will sue you for every penny you have ever earned. I will destroy you. Do you understand? Maria met her eyes without flinching. I understand. I will not damage the piano. I will fix it. Elena turned to Helena. Fine. Let her try. But I want to watch everything she does. And if she makes even one wrong move, she stops immediately. Helena nodded with relief. Thank you, Mrs. Ashworth. Maria, please begin. Maria took the tools from Helena and turned back to the piano. Her hands were steady now. The fear had been replaced by something else. Something she had not felt in years. Purpose. She began by removing the broken string carefully, using the wire cutters to clip away the damaged section. Her movements were precise and confident, like a surgeon performing an operation she had done 1,000 times. Elena watched with narrowed eyes, looking for any mistake, any sign that this cleaning woman was in over her head. But as the minutes passed, she found nothing to criticize. The janitor worked with surprising skill, her hands moving with practiced ease. Maria selected a replacement string from the set Helena had brought. She measured it against the neighboring strings, checking the gauge and tension. Then she began the delicate process of threading it through the proper holes and wrapping it around the tuning pin. This was the critical part. If the string was not installed correctly, it would not hold its tune. Worse, it could snap again during performance, which would be embarrassing beyond words. Maria worked slowly and carefully. She could feel Elena's eyes on her back, waiting for her to fail. But she did not fail. She could not fail. This was not about proving Elena wrong. This was about the music. The piano deserved to be whole again. After 10 minutes, the new string was in place. Maria picked up the tuning hammer and began the process of bringing the string up to pitch. This required a careful ear, listening for the subtle vibrations, comparing the sound to the neighboring strings. She struck the key gently. The sound was flat, not yet matching its partners. She turned the tuning pin slightly, adjusting the tension. She struck again, closer, but not perfect. Another tiny adjustment. Another test. Finally, the note rang out pure and true. It matched the strings around it perfectly. The piano was whole again. Maria stepped back from the instrument. It is done, she said simply. Helena rushed forward to check. She pressed the key several times, listening carefully. The sound was flawless. She looked at Maria with amazement. It sounds perfect, Helena said. How did you learn to do this? Maria did not answer. She just looked at the piano with an expression that was part satisfaction and part sadness. Elena pushed past Helena and sat down at the bench. She needed to test the repair herself. She did not trust anyone's judgment but her own. Her fingers flew across the keys, playing a complicated series of scales and arpeggios. The sound filled the stage, bouncing off the walls and curtains. Elena played harder, faster, testing every corner of the piano's range. The instrument responded beautifully. The repaired string held its tune perfectly. If anything, the piano sounded better than before. Elena stopped playing. She sat in silence for a moment, and something strange crossed her face. It almost looked like embarrassment, though she quickly hid it. It will do, she said curtly. She refused to acknowledge that Maria had saved her performance. She refused to say thank you or show any gratitude. Now get her off my stage before the curtain opens. Helena nodded. Maria, thank you. Your help was invaluable. Maria gathered the tools and prepared to leave. But as she walked toward the edge of the stage, Elena's voice stopped her. Wait. Maria turned around. Elena was still sitting at the piano, her back to Maria, her face invisible. How did you know? Elena asked quietly. How did you know it was the G string before you even looked at the piano? Maria paused. The question hung in the air between them. She could lie, could make up some simple explanation. But something in her was tired of lying, tired of hiding. I heard it break, Maria said. Every string has its own voice. When you play for many years, you learn to recognize them. Elena turned slowly on the bench. Her eyes were different now, suspicious in a new way. When you play for many years, she repeated, you speak as if you have played professionally. Maria said nothing. She simply looked at Elena, her face calm but her heart pounding. Who are you? Elena asked. Really? Before Maria could answer, Helena interrupted. Mrs. Ashworth, the concert begins in 15 minutes. You need to complete your final preparations. The moment broke. Elena looked away, returning to her cold, professional mask. Get her out of here, she said, and make sure she stays in the back where she belongs. Maria walked off the stage without another word. But she could feel Elena's eyes following her, filled with questions that had no answers. In the backstage area, Thomas found her. His face lit up when he saw her. Did you fix it? He asked eagerly. Maria nodded. Yes. The piano is ready for her performance. Thomas grinned. I knew you could do it. How did it feel? Being close to a piano again after all these years? Maria considered the question. How did it feel? It felt like coming home after a long journey. It felt like waking up from a deep sleep. It felt terrifying and wonderful and painful all at once. It felt, she said slowly, like remembering who I used to be. Thomas put his hand gently on her shoulder. Maybe it is time to stop hiding. Maybe tonight is the night you become that person again. Maria shook her head. No. That person died a long time ago. I fixed the piano because it needed to be fixed. That is all. Now I will go back to my work and let the famous Elena Ashworth have her spotlight. But even as she said the words, Maria felt something stirring in her chest. The music was awake now. It had been sleeping for 35 years, and her hands on those keys had brought it back to life. She did not know it yet, but the night was far from over. The piano was fixed, but the real performance had not even begun. The concert had begun. Elena Ashworth walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. The audience rose to their feet, honoring one of the greatest pianists of their generation. Camera flashes sparkled like stars throughout the darkened hall. Elena wore her red dress like armor and her diamond necklace like a crown. She smiled graciously at the crowd, bowing with practiced elegance. This was her kingdom, and these people were her subjects. She had performed on stages around the world, but the feeling never got old. The power of having hundreds of people waiting to hear her play was intoxicating. She sat down at the Steinway, the same piano that Maria had repaired just 30 minutes earlier. Elena adjusted the bench, stretched her fingers, and placed her hands on the keys. The hall fell silent. 800 people held their breath. Then she began to play. The first piece was by Franz Liszt, a Hungarian composer known for writing extremely difficult music. Elena's fingers flew across the keys with impressive speed and accuracy. The notes cascaded through the concert hall like a waterfall, filling every corner with sound. The audience was mesmerized. They watched Elena's hands move in ways that seemed almost impossible. They felt the music wash over them, powerful and precise. When the piece ended, the applause was deafening. Elena performed her second piece with equal skill. By the time intermission arrived, the audience was completely enchanted. They talked excitedly amongst themselves, praising Elena's talent, saying she was worth every penny of the expensive tickets. Backstage, Elena was pleased with herself. The crisis with the broken string was forgotten. The cleaning woman who had dared to touch her piano was forgotten. Everything was going exactly as planned. During intermission, the guests mingled in the grand lobby. Waiters circled with champagne and small appetizers. The wealthy donors congratulated each other on supporting such a wonderful event. The charity would raise a lot of money tonight. Elena stayed in her dressing room, drinking special water and resting her hands. Sophie attended to her every need while Frederick reviewed the schedule for the rest of the evening. One more piece after intermission, Frederick said. Then the speech from the charity director. Then the donation announcements. You have been magnificent tonight, Elena. Simply magnificent. Elena examined herself in the mirror. Of course I have been. Did you expect anything less? Meanwhile, in the back hallways of the concert hall, Maria was emptying trash cans. She had heard Elena's performance through the walls. The sound was muffled, but she could still recognize the pieces, still feel the music in her bones. Elena was talented, Maria had to admit. Her technique was flawless, her speed impressive, but there was something missing from her playing. Maria could not quite name it. The notes were all correct, but they felt empty somehow. Like a beautiful painting with no soul. Thomas found Maria near the service entrance. He had been watching the concert from the wings and had seen the audience's reaction. She is good, Thomas said. Elena, I mean. The crowd loves her. Maria nodded. She has skill, many years of practice. But Thomas sensed there was more. Maria sighed. But music is not just about hitting the right notes at the right time. It is about feeling. It is about sharing something true with the audience. Elena plays perfectly, but she plays for herself. She plays to be admired, not to connect. Thomas thought about this. He did not know much about classical music, but he understood what Maria meant. He had felt it too, watching from backstage. Elena's performance was impressive but cold. You could show her, Thomas said quietly. You could show everyone what real music sounds like. Maria shook her head firmly. No, that part of my life is over. I fixed the piano. That is enough. But fate had other plans. Inside the concert hall, intermission was ending. The guests returned to their seats, ready for the final part of the evening. Elena prepared to take the stage again for her last piece, the most challenging of the night. But something happened that nobody expected. Elena had been drinking champagne during intermission. Not much, just a glass or two to celebrate her successful performance. She was not drunk, but the alcohol had loosened her tongue and inflated her already enormous ego. As she walked toward the stage, she passed by a group of staff members gathered near the backstage entrance. Among them was Maria, who had come to collect some garbage bags. Elena stopped. The champagne bubbled through her veins, making her feel bold and cruel. She remembered her earlier humiliation, when a cleaning woman had dared to offer help. She remembered how Maria had fixed the piano with suspicious skill. She remembered the question that had been bothering her all evening. Who was this woman really? You, Elena said, pointing at Maria. Come here. Maria looked up, surprised. The other staff members stepped back nervously. Yes, Mrs. Ashworth? Maria said quietly. Elena walked closer, her heels clicking on the floor. I have been thinking about you, about how you fixed my piano so easily, about how you knew which string was broken before you even looked. Tell me, cleaning woman, where did you really learn these things? Maria's heart began to race. I told you, I have experience with pianos. Experience, Elena repeated. What kind of experience? Did you tune pianos for a living? Were you some kind of technician? Maria said nothing. She felt trapped, like an animal caught in a bright light. Elena smiled coldly. Or maybe you were something more. Maybe you actually played the piano. Is that it? Were you some amateur pianist who never made it? Is that why you hate me so much? Because I succeeded where you failed? The staff members watched in uncomfortable silence. Nobody dared to intervene. I do not hate you, Maria said softly. Then prove it, Elena said. A wicked idea had formed in her champagne-soaked mind. If you know so much about pianos, if you have all this mysterious experience, then show us. Play something. Maria felt the blood drain from her face. I do not think that is appropriate. Not appropriate? Elena laughed loudly. You offered to help earlier. You said you could do more than fix the piano. Well, here is your chance. Play for us. Show everyone what the great piano expert can do. By now, a small crowd had gathered. Stagehands, servers, and even some guests who had wandered backstage were watching the confrontation. Helena Berg pushed through the crowd, alarmed by the commotion. Mrs. Ashworth, the intermission is almost over. You need to take the stage. In a moment, Elena said, never taking her eyes off Maria. First, I want to see our cleaning lady perform. She claims she can play. Let her prove it. Helena looked at Maria with concern. Mrs. Ashworth, please. This is not the time. Elena raised her voice so everyone could hear. I will make it interesting. If this woman can play anything worthwhile on that piano, anything at all, I will donate my entire fee from tonight to the charity, 50,000 euros. But if she fails, if she embarrasses herself as I expect she will, then she must apologize. On her knees, in front of everyone, for wasting our time and lying about her abilities. A gasp went through the crowd. The stakes were enormous. 50,000 euros was more money than most of them would earn in a year. Maria stood frozen. Every instinct told her to refuse, to walk away, to return to her invisible life. But something else was stirring inside her. The music that had awakened when she touched the piano, the memories of who she used to be. The pride that Elena's cruelty had wounded. Thomas pushed forward from the crowd. Maria, you do not have to do this. But Maria was no longer listening to him. She was listening to something else, a voice from long ago. Her father's voice, telling her that music was a gift meant to be shared. Her daughter's laugh, ringing like bells. Her husband's smile, warm as summer sunshine. For 35 years, Maria had been silent. For 35 years, she had hidden from her pain. But pain shared through music was pain transformed. Her teachers had taught her that. She had forgotten it in her grief. But now she remembered. I accept, Maria said. The words hung in the air like the first notes of a symphony. Elena's smile widened. She was certain she had won. How could a cleaning woman possibly play well enough to avoid humiliation? Excellent, Elena said. After my final piece, you will take the stage. Let everyone see what happens when servants pretend to be artists. She turned and walked toward the stage, leaving Maria surrounded by whispers and stares. Thomas grabbed Maria's arm. Are you sure about this? You have not played in 35 years. Maria looked at him with eyes that seemed suddenly younger, suddenly alive. Some things you never forget, she said. Some things live inside you forever, waiting for the right moment to come out. The crowd parted as Maria walked toward the stage entrance. Her cleaning uniform was stained. Her shoes were old and worn. Her gray hair was escaping from its simple bun, but her back was straight, and her hands were steady. She was no longer Maria the janitor. She was remembering who she had been before the tragedy, before the silence, before the long years of hiding. She was remembering Maria Kowalska, the prodigy of Warsaw, the woman they had once called Poland's greatest gift to piano. And in a few minutes, the whole world would remember too. Elena performed her final piece with aggressive energy. She attacked the keys like she was fighting a war, determined to show everyone in the audience why she was considered one of the best pianists alive. The music thundered through the concert hall, powerful and precise. When she finished, the applause was tremendous. People stood and clapped until their hands hurt. Elena bowed again and again, soaking in the admiration like a flower drinking sunlight. This was her moment. This was her glory. But Elena had one more performance planned for the evening. Not her own performance, but a spectacle of humiliation that would entertain her and put the uppity cleaning woman in her place. She walked to the front of the stage and raised her hand. The applause slowly died down. The audience looked at her curiously, wondering what was happening. Usually, the performer simply left the stage after the final piece. Ladies and gentlemen, Elena said, her voice carrying easily through the hall. Thank you for your generous applause. Before we continue with the evening's program, I have a special announcement. Helena Berg stood in the wings, her stomach tight with worry. She had tried to stop this madness, but Elena had insisted. There was nothing Helena could do now except watch and hope for the best. Tonight, we had a small crisis backstage, Elena continued. A string on this magnificent piano broke just hours before the performance. Our regular technician could not arrive in time, but someone unexpected stepped forward to help. The audience murmured with curiosity. They loved behind-the-scenes stories. One of our cleaning staff, a woman named Maria, offered to repair the piano. She claimed to have experience with such things. Against my better judgment, I allowed her to try. And surprisingly, she succeeded. A few people in the audience clapped politely. Elena held up her hand again. But that is not all. Maria made an even more surprising claim. She said she could play the piano. Not just play it, but play it professionally. She claimed to have been a concert pianist once, many years ago. Now the audience was truly intrigued. A cleaning woman who used to be a concert pianist? It sounded like something from a fairy tale. I have decided to give her a chance to prove herself. Elena said with a smile that did not reach her eyes. If she can play something worthy of this stage, I will donate my entire fee, 50,000 euros, to tonight's charity. If she cannot, well, she will simply apologize for wasting our time. The audience buzzed with excitement. This was unexpected entertainment. Some people took out their phones, ready to record whatever happened next. Maria, Elena called out, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Please join me on stage. Behind the curtain, Maria stood very still. Thomas was beside her, his face pale with worry. You can still say no, Thomas whispered. You do not have to do this. Maria looked at him. Her eyes were calm, but something burned behind them. Something ancient and powerful. Yes, I do, she said. I have been hiding for 35 years. I have been running from my pain, from my memories, from who I really am. Tonight, it ends. Whatever happens on that stage, at least I will have been true to myself. She began to remove her cleaning gloves, pulling them off one finger at a time. Her hands emerged, worn from years of hard work but still graceful. Still the hands of a pianist. Thomas watched her transform before his eyes. Her shoulders straightened, her chin lifted. The tired old woman who mopped floors seemed to fade away, replaced by someone else entirely. Someone proud, someone powerful, someone who had once commanded the attention of thousands. Who are you really? Thomas asked softly. Maria smiled, and for a moment she looked almost young again. I am Maria Kowalska. I was born in Warsaw. I trained at the conservatory there. I played with orchestras across Europe. Critics said I was the best of my generation. She paused, and then I lost everything, and I stopped being that person. But she never really died. She was just sleeping. Maria walked toward the stage entrance. Each step felt like a step backward through time. She was not walking toward humiliation. She was walking toward liberation. She pushed through the curtain and stepped into the light. The audience fell silent. They saw a small, elderly woman in a stained cleaning uniform. Her gray hair was messy. Her shoes were plain and worn. She looked nothing like a concert pianist. She looked exactly like what Elena had said, a cleaning woman with delusions of grandeur. Some people in the audience smiled with embarrassment for her. Others whispered to their neighbors. A few even laughed quietly. Elena stood near the piano, her arms crossed, her expression triumphant. Maria walked across the stage. The distance from the curtain to the piano felt like miles. She could feel the judgment of 800 pairs of eyes. She could hear the quiet mockery in their whispers. She could see Elena's cruel smile, but she did not stop. She did not falter. She walked with the dignity of someone who had nothing left to prove to anyone but herself. When she reached the piano, she stopped. She looked at the instrument that had been her whole world once, long ago. The Steinway gleamed under the stage lights, beautiful and waiting. Well, Elena said loudly, wanting the audience to hear. Do not keep us waiting. Show us what you can do. Maria did not respond to Elena. Instead, she did something that surprised everyone. She turned to face the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, Maria said. Her voice was soft but clear, carrying easily in the silent hall. My name is Maria Kowalska. 35 years ago, I was a concert pianist. I performed on stages like this one, in cities around the world. Then tragedy took my family from me, and I could not play anymore. The music reminded me too much of what I had lost. The audience listened, captivated by her words. Even the people who had been snickering fell silent. Tonight, I will play for the first time in 35 years. I do not play for pride or for money. I play for my husband Andrei, who believed in me. I play for my daughter Katya, who loved to hear me practice. And I play for myself, to remember who I was before sorrow made me forget. She turned back to the piano. Slowly, carefully, she sat down on the bench. It was the same bench Elena had used moments ago, but Maria adjusted it differently, moving it slightly closer to the keys, changing the height by a tiny amount. Elena watched these adjustments with growing unease. The way Maria handled the bench was not the way an amateur would. It was precise, professional, automatic. The movements of someone who had done this thousands of times. Maria placed her hands in her lap for a moment, closing her eyes. The audience waited, barely breathing. Even the waiters at the back of the hall had stopped moving. In the darkness behind her eyes, Maria saw her daughter's face. She heard Katya asking to sit on her lap while she played. She felt the weight of that small, warm body against her chest. She remembered the joy of teaching her child the names of the notes, the shapes of the chords, the magic of turning feelings into sound. A tear rolled down Maria's cheek. She did not wipe it away. Then she opened her eyes, lifted her hands, and placed her fingers on the keys. The touch was electric. 35 years of silence ended in that single moment of contact. Maria felt the cool ivory beneath her fingertips, felt the potential energy waiting to be released, felt the music rising up from somewhere deep inside her. She had chosen her piece carefully. It was not something flashy or technical. It was not designed to show off speed or power. It was something far more difficult. Chopin's Ballade No. 1, in G minor, one of the most emotionally demanding pieces in the entire piano repertoire. This was the piece Maria had been playing when she learned she was pregnant with Katya. This was the piece Andrei had requested at their wedding reception. This was the piece that held all her memories, all her love, all her grief. She took a deep breath, and then she began to play. The first notes emerged softly, hesitantly, like someone speaking after years of silence. The melody was simple at first, almost like a question being asked to an empty room. But as the music continued, something miraculous happened. Maria's fingers remembered. Her hands remembered. Her heart remembered. The hesitation disappeared, replaced by confidence, then by passion, then by something that could only be called fire. The music grew stronger. The notes cascaded from the piano like water breaking through a dam. Maria's whole body moved with the rhythm, swaying and bending, completely surrendered to the sound she was creating. In the audience, people began to sit up straighter. The polite interest on their faces transformed into something else. Surprise, wonder, awe. This was not the playing of an amateur. This was not even the playing of a good professional. This was something extraordinary, something transcendent, something that happened perhaps once in a generation. Elena's smile had frozen on her face. Her arms dropped to her sides. She stared at Maria with wide eyes, unable to believe what she was hearing. The cleaning woman was not just playing the piano, she was making it sing. The music filled the concert hall like a living thing. It wrapped around the audience, entered their ears, and traveled straight to their hearts. This was not just sound. This was emotion made audible. This was 35 years of grief and love and memory pouring out through ivory and steel strings. Maria played with her eyes closed. She did not need to see the keys. Her fingers knew where to go. They danced across the piano with a grace that seemed almost supernatural, finding notes that sparkled like diamonds, creating harmonies that ached like old wounds. Chopin's Ballade No. 1 was famous for its difficulty. Professional pianists practiced for years to master its complex passages. The piece demanded not just technical skill but emotional depth. It told a story of love and loss, of hope and despair, of beauty found in the midst of suffering. In Maria's hands, the music became something more. It became her story. Every note carried weight. Every phrase had meaning. When the melody soared, it was the memory of her wedding day, of Andrich spinning her around the dance floor while guests applauded. When the music turned dark and turbulent, it was the screech of brakes, the shattering of glass, the world ending in a single terrible moment. The audience sat motionless, hypnotized. Some had tears streaming down their faces without even realizing it. Others gripped the arms of their chairs, overwhelmed by the intensity of what they were hearing. In the front row, a music critic named Johann Weber leaned forward in his seat. He had been writing about classical music for 30 years. He had heard thousands of performances by hundreds of pianists. He thought he had heard everything. He was wrong. This cleaning woman, this nobody in a stained uniform, was playing with more soul and passion than anyone he had ever witnessed. Her technique was not as polished as Elena's. There were tiny imperfections, small hesitations, moments where her fingers struggled with passages they had not played in decades. But none of that mattered. The emotion was so pure, so honest, so devastating, that technical perfection became irrelevant. Johann felt tears on his own cheeks. He could not remember the last time music had made him cry. On stage, Elena stood frozen like a statue. Her face had gone pale. Her hands were trembling at her sides. She watched Maria play, and something crumbled inside her. For her entire career, Elena had believed that music was about perfection. It was about hitting every note correctly, about playing faster and louder than anyone else, about impressing critics and winning competitions. She had trained herself to be a machine, flawless and precise. But now she was seeing something different. She was seeing that music could be about truth, about vulnerability, about opening your heart and letting others see inside, no matter how painful that might be. Maria was not trying to impress anyone. She was not competing. She was simply sharing the deepest parts of herself, using the piano as her voice, and that honesty created something far more powerful than technical perfection ever could. The ballade moved into its most demanding section. Maria's fingers flew across the keys, somehow finding the speed and precision that the music demanded. The notes tumbled over each other like waves crashing on rocks. The sound built and built, growing more intense with each passing measure. In the audience, people began to grip each other's hands. Strangers held onto strangers, connected by the music that surrounded them all. Some closed their eyes, letting the sound wash over them completely. Others watched Maria with expressions of disbelief. Helena Berg stood in the wings, her hand pressed over her mouth. She had worked in this concert hall for 15 years. She had seen legendary performers on that stage, but she had never seen anything like this. Thomas watched from the opposite wing, tears streaming freely down his face. He thought about Maria's story, about the husband and daughter she had lost, about the 35 years of silence and hiding. He understood now why she had stopped playing. How could anyone touch a piano after such loss, knowing that every note would bring back memories of those who were gone? But somehow Maria was doing it. She was facing her pain instead of running from it. She was transforming her grief into beauty, her sorrow into song. It was the bravest thing Thomas had ever witnessed. The ballade reached its emotional peak. The music became almost unbearable in its intensity, crying out with a grief that went beyond words. Maria's body bent over the keys as if she was praying, her fingers drawing out sounds that seemed impossible for a piano to make. Then the storm passed. The music softened, becoming gentle and tender. It was like the calm after a hurricane, the peace that comes when you have finally stopped fighting and simply accepted what is. Maria played the final passages with heartbreaking delicacy. Each note was a whisper, a goodbye, a promise. The melody faded slowly, growing quieter and quieter, until only the faintest echo remained. And then silence. Maria's hands rested on the final chord. She did not move. She did not open her eyes. She stayed perfectly still, letting the last vibrations of the strings fade into nothing. The concert hall was absolutely silent. 800 people sat without making a sound. It was as if the music had stolen their ability to speak, to move, to even breathe. 1 second passed, then 2, then 3, and then the silence shattered. A woman in the third row stood up and began to clap. The sound was sharp and loud in the quiet hall. Then the man next to her stood. Then another person, and another, and another. Within moments, the entire audience was on its feet. The applause was deafening, a roar of sound that shook the chandeliers and echoed off the marble walls. People were crying openly now, not bothering to hide their tears. They clapped until their hands hurt, and then they clapped some more. "Brava!" someone shouted. "Brava!" The cry was taken up by others. "Brava! Brava! Brava!" Maria finally opened her eyes. She turned slowly on the bench to face the audience. What she saw made her breath catch in her throat. 800 people were standing for her. 800 people were applauding her. 800 people were crying because of the music she had made. It was overwhelming. For 35 years, Maria had believed that her time as a performer was over. She had convinced herself that the musician inside her had died along with her family. She had hidden in plain sight, invisible and forgotten. But the musician had not died. The music had not disappeared. It had simply been waiting, sleeping in the deepest corners of her soul, ready to wake up when the time was right. Maria stood slowly from the bench. Her legs felt weak, but she managed to stay upright. She looked out at the sea of faces, at the tears and the smiles and the open mouths, shouting her praise. She thought about Andrei, about how proud he would have been. She thought about Katya, about the little girl who had loved to sit on her lap while she played. She imagined them somewhere, somehow, watching and smiling. "Thank you," Maria whispered, though no one could hear her over the thunder of applause. Thank you for being with me tonight." She bowed her head, and the tears she had been holding back finally broke free. They rolled down her wrinkled cheeks, dropping onto the stage floor like rain. The applause continued for 5 full minutes. Every time it seemed to be fading, someone would shout, "Brava!" and it would surge again. People stamped their feet and whistled and cheered. Johann Weber, the music critic, had his notebook out and was writing furiously. His review would appear in the morning paper, and it would say that he had witnessed one of the most extraordinary performances of his career. It would say that a forgotten pianist had returned from obscurity to remind them all what music was supposed to be. It would say that he had cried like a child, and he was not ashamed. On the stage, forgotten by everyone, Elena Ashworth stood alone. Her perfect makeup was ruined by the tears she could not stop. Her hands hung limp at her sides. Her expression was that of someone whose entire worldview had just collapsed. She had spent her whole life believing she was special. She had built her identity on being the best, the most talented, the most admired. She had looked down on everyone around her, convinced that they were beneath her. But tonight, a cleaning woman had shown her what true artistry looked like. A woman in a stained uniform, with calloused hands and gray hair, had moved an audience more deeply than Elena ever had. Elena finally understood what she had been missing. Not technique, not practice, not expensive dresses or diamond necklaces. Soul, heart, truth, the things she had sacrificed in her pursuit of perfection, the things she had forgotten how to feel. As the applause continued to thunder around her, Elena looked at Maria with new eyes. Not with jealousy or anger or contempt, with something that felt dangerously close to respect. The applause finally began to fade after what felt like an eternity. Maria stood at the center of the stage, small and worn in her cleaning uniform, but somehow radiating a light that made her seem 10 feet tall. The audience slowly returned to their seats, but the energy in the room had completely changed. Something magical had happened, and everyone knew it. Helena Berg rushed onto the stage from the wings. Her professional composure had broken, and she was openly crying. She approached Maria and took both her hands. "That was incredible," Helena whispered. "I have never heard anything like it in my entire life." Maria squeezed Helena's hands gently. "Thank you for believing in me, for giving me a chance." The charity director, a man named Dr. Klaus Richter, came forward with a microphone. He was supposed to give a speech about the evening's fundraising goals, but the planned program seemed suddenly inadequate. Something unprecedented had just occurred, and it demanded acknowledgement. "Ladies and gentlemen," "Doctor," Richter said, his voice thick with emotion, "I think we can all agree that we have witnessed something extraordinary tonight. Mrs. Maria, would you please stay on stage for a moment?" Maria nodded nervously. She was not used to attention. 35 years of invisibility had made her uncomfortable in the spotlight. The audience was buzzing with conversation. People were turning to their neighbors, sharing their reactions, trying to process what they had just experienced. Many were still wiping tears from their eyes. "Mrs. Maria," Dr. Richter continued, "before tonight, none of us knew your name. You worked here in this building, and we walked past you without seeing you. We are all guilty of that blindness. But tonight, you opened our eyes. You reminded us why music matters. You showed us that beauty can come from unexpected places." More applause erupted. Maria bowed her head, overwhelmed. In the wings, Thomas was furiously searching on his phone. His fingers flew across the screen as he typed in different search terms. Maria Kowalska, Polish pianist, Warsaw Conservatory, 1,980 seconds. And then, he found it. His jaw dropped as he scrolled through old photographs and ancient reviews. The pictures showed a young woman with dark hair and bright eyes, sitting at pianos in grand concert halls across Europe. The reviews praised her emotional depth, her technical brilliance, her ability to make audiences weep. One article called her the voice of Chopin reborn. Another said she played with a passion that bordered on the supernatural. A third described her as Poland's greatest gift to the piano, a talent that appears perhaps once in a generation. Then Thomas found the article about the accident. His heart clenched as he read about the truck driver who fell asleep, about the cellist husband and the 5-year-old daughter who did not survive, about the promising career that ended abruptly when Maria Kowalska disappeared from public life. She was famous, Thomas breathed. She was really, truly famous. He looked back at the stage, at the small woman standing awkwardly in the spotlight. This was not just a cleaning lady with some musical training. This was a legendary pianist who had walked away from everything and vanished into anonymity. Back on stage, Dr. Richter was continuing his remarks. I understand that earlier this evening, a challenge was made. Mrs. Ashworth promised to donate her entire performance fee if Mrs. Maria could play something worthy of this stage. He paused dramatically. I think we can all agree that Mrs. Maria has exceeded that standard. The audience applauded again. All eyes turned to Elena, who still stood near the piano, her face unreadable. Elena felt the weight of 800 stares. She knew what they expected. They expected her to be gracious, to honor her promise, to accept defeat with dignity. But gracious had never been her style. Losing had never been something she knew how to do. She walked slowly toward the center of the stage. Each step felt heavy, as if she was walking through water. She stopped a few feet from Maria and turned to face the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, Elena said. Her voice was quieter than usual, lacking its typical arrogance. I made a promise tonight. I said I would donate 50,000 euros if this woman could play something worthy of this stage. She paused. The audience waited. I was wrong to make such a challenge. I was wrong to doubt her abilities. I was wrong about many things. A murmur went through the crowd. Was Elena Ashworth actually admitting she was wrong? The legendary perfectionist, the notoriously difficult diva, was admitting a mistake? Elena turned to face Maria directly. The two women stood close together now, the famous pianist and the anonymous janitor. But the labels seemed meaningless after what had just happened. I treated you badly, Elena said, and her voice cracked slightly. I mocked you. I insulted you. I tried to humiliate you in front of everyone, and you responded by playing the most beautiful music I have ever heard. Maria looked at Elena with gentle eyes. She saw past the expensive dress and the diamond necklace. She saw a woman who had never learned that vulnerability was strength, not weakness. She saw someone who was terrified of being less than perfect because she did not know any other way to exist. We all carry our own burdens, Maria said softly. Yours are different from mine, but they are still heavy. Elena's composure finally broke. Tears spilled down her cheeks, ruining what remained of her perfect makeup. In front of 800 people, the great Elena Ashworth began to cry. I will donate triple my fee tonight, Elena said through her tears. 150,000 euros to the Children's Hospital. And I want everyone here to know that I have learned something important. I have learned that being the best at something means nothing if you forget to be human. The audience erupted in the loudest applause of the night. People stood again, clapping and cheering, moved by Elena's unexpected transformation. Johann Weber scribbled furiously in his notebook. This was the story of the year. A hidden genius, a public humiliation turned triumph, a proud star brought to tears by a cleaning woman. His editor would be ecstatic. But Johann knew that the true story was not about drama or redemption. It was about something simpler and more profound. It was about the power of music to reach across all the walls that people build between themselves. It was about truth being more powerful than pretense. Dr. Richter stepped forward again. This evening has been full of surprises, but we have one more moment to share. Mrs. Maria, many of us are curious about your past. You spoke briefly before your performance, but there is clearly much more to your story. Would you be willing to share it with us? Maria hesitated. She had spent 3 decades hiding from her history. The thought of revealing everything to a room full of strangers was terrifying, but then she looked at the faces in the audience. She saw kindness there. She saw genuine curiosity. She saw people who had been moved by her music and wanted to understand where it came from. My full name is Maria Kowalska, she began. I was born in Warsaw, Poland, 62 years ago. I began playing piano when I was 4 years old. She told them everything. She told them about her parents' sacrifices, her years of training, her rise to fame. She told them about Andrzej, about his warm smile and beautiful cello playing. She told them about Katya, about her daughter's laugh and her tiny fingers reaching for the piano keys. And she told them about the accident, about the truck that crossed the center line, about the moment when her whole world ended. After the funeral, Maria said, her voice steady despite the tears on her face, I could not play anymore. Every time I touched a piano, I heard my daughter asking for her favorite songs. I saw my husband standing in the doorway, listening with that smile he always had. The music that had been my joy became unbearable pain. The audience listened in absolute silence. Many were crying. Even the waiters at the back of the hall had stopped to listen, so I disappeared. Maria continued. I changed my name slightly. I moved away from everyone who knew me. I found work where no one would recognize me, where no one would ask questions. For 35 years, I have cleaned floors and emptied trash cans and pretended to be nobody. She paused and looked around the grand concert hall. Tonight, I was forced to choose between hiding and truth. I chose truth. I do not know if I made the right decision. But sitting at that piano, playing for the first time since I lost my family, I felt something I had forgotten was possible. What was that? Dr. Richter asked gently. Maria smiled through her tears. Joy, she said simply. Pure, unexpected joy. I thought the music had died with my husband and daughter, but tonight I discovered it was still alive. It had just been sleeping, waiting for me to find the courage to wake it up. The audience rose once more in a standing ovation, but this time, the applause was different. It was not just appreciation for her performance. It was respect for her courage, admiration for her honesty, and gratitude for sharing something so deeply personal. In that moment, Maria Kowalska stopped being invisible. After 35 years in the shadows, she had finally stepped back into the light. The charity gala continued for another 2 hours, but the atmosphere had completely transformed. What had begun as a formal evening of expensive clothes and polite conversation had become something warmer, something more human. Strangers talked to each other with unusual openness. Donors who normally competed for status instead shared stories about their own hidden struggles and forgotten dreams. Maria found herself surrounded by people who wanted to meet her. Wealthy businessmen and elegant women lined up to shake her hand, to thank her for her performance, to ask questions about her remarkable life. She answered them all with patience and grace. Though the attention exhausted her, Thomas stayed close by, making sure she had water to drink and a chair to sit in when she needed rest. He felt protective of her now, this extraordinary woman who had shared her deepest secrets with a room full of strangers. Elena Ashworth approached Maria near the end of the evening. The famous pianist looked different now. Her perfect composure had cracked, revealing something more genuine underneath. Her eyes were red from crying, and her mascara had left dark trails down her cheeks. She had not bothered to fix her makeup. May I speak with you privately? Elena asked. Maria nodded. Thomas watched them walk toward a quiet corner of the hall, away from the crowd. The two women stood facing each other. Elena was taller, younger, more glamorous, but somehow Maria seemed like the larger presence. I owe you an apology, Elena said. Her voice was softer than Maria had ever heard it. Not just for tonight. For everything. The way I spoke to you, the things I said, the cruelty I showed. There is no excuse for any of it. Maria studied Elena's face. She saw genuine remorse there, but also something else. Fear. Elena was afraid. Maria realized. Afraid that her whole identity had been built on shallow foundations. I forgive you, Maria said simply. Elena shook her head. You should not forgive me so easily. I treated you like dirt. I called you worthless. I tried to humiliate you in front of hundreds of people. Yes, you did, Maria agreed. But the piano already taught you the lesson, child. You heard what real music sounds like. You felt what happens when someone plays with their whole heart instead of their ego. That knowledge will change you more than any punishment I could give. Elena's eyes filled with fresh tears. How do you do it? How do you play with such emotion? I have practiced for hours every day since I was 5 years old. I have perfect technique. But what you did tonight, I could never do that. Not in a million years. Maria reached out and took Elena's hands. They were smooth and soft, the hands of someone who had never done physical labor. Maria's own hands were rough and worn, but both pairs of hands could make music. Technique is important, Maria said gently. Practice is necessary, but music is not about perfection. Music is about truth. When you play, you must be willing to open your heart completely. You must be willing to show the audience your deepest feelings, your greatest joys, your worst sorrows. That vulnerability is frightening. Many people never learn to do it. How can I learn? Elena asked. How can I change after all these years? Maria smiled. Start by being kind. To yourself and to others. Stop trying to prove that you are better than everyone else. Instead, try to connect with them. Music is a conversation, not a competition. The piano is not a weapon. It is a bridge between hearts. Elena listened carefully, absorbing every word. For the first time in her adult life, she was truly hearing someone, instead of waiting for her turn to speak. Will you teach me? Elena asked suddenly. Not technique, not speed or accuracy. Will you teach me how to play with soul? Maria was surprised by the request. She had expected Elena to retreat back into her comfortable arrogance, to dismiss tonight as an embarrassing anomaly. Instead, the famous pianist was asking the janitor to be her teacher. I do not know if I will continue playing, Maria said honestly. Tonight was the first time in 35 years. I do not know if I am ready to return to that world. Then just talk to me sometimes, Elena said. Share what you know. Help me understand what I have been missing. She paused. Please. I have never asked anyone for help before. It is harder than I expected. Maria squeezed Elena's hands. Yes, I will help you, but only if you promise to remember this moment. Remember what it felt like to be humble. Remember that everyone you meet is fighting battles you cannot see. I promise, Elena whispered. They stood in silence for a moment. Two women from different worlds who had found unexpected common ground. The concert hall buzzed with activity around them, but they were in their own private space. Eventually, they returned to the main gathering. The evening was winding down. Guests were beginning to leave, collecting their coats and saying their goodbyes. Many stopped to shake Maria's hand one more time, to thank her again for the gift she had given them. Johann Weber, the music critic, approached Maria with his notebook still in hand. Mrs. Kowalska, he said, I have been writing about music for 30 years. I thought I had seen everything. Tonight, you proved me wrong. I would like to write your story, if you would allow it. Not just a review of your performance, but your whole journey. The fame, the tragedy, the years of hiding. I think people need to hear it. Maria considered the offer. For so long, she had worked hard to stay invisible. The thought of being written about, of having her story told to thousands of readers, was intimidating, but she thought about the faces in the audience tonight. She thought about the tears people had shed, the connections they had made. Maybe her story could help others. Maybe knowing that someone had survived such loss and found music again could give hope to people carrying their own burdens. Yes, Maria said. You may write my story, but please write it honestly. Include the dark parts as well as the light. Include my failures as well as my success. I do not want to be made into something I am not. Johann nodded solemnly. I will tell the truth. I promise you that. The evening ended. The last guests departed. The staff began cleaning up, collecting glasses and folding chairs. Maria should have been helping them. It was her job, after all. But Helena Berg insisted that she sit and rest. You have done enough tonight, Helena said. More than enough. Go home. Sleep. Come back tomorrow and we will talk about your future here. Thomas walked Maria to the employee exit. The night air was cool and fresh. A relief after the warmth of the crowded hall. Stars twinkled overhead, tiny points of light in the vast darkness. What happens now? Thomas asked. Maria breathed deeply, filling her lungs with the night air. I do not know, she admitted. Everything has changed. I cannot go back to being invisible. But I do not know if I am ready to be visible either. Whatever you decide, Thomas said. You have friends now, people who believe in you. You are not alone anymore. Maria smiled at him. This young man who had shown her kindness when everyone else had looked away. He had helped her find the courage to step back onto that stage. Thank you, Thomas. For everything. For listening to my story. For encouraging me when I wanted to hide. Thank me by playing again, Thomas said. Not for audiences or fame or money. Just for yourself. Let the music be part of your life again. Maria nodded slowly. It was good advice. The music had come back to her tonight, and she could not imagine losing it again. She walked home through the quiet streets of Vienna. The city was beautiful in the darkness, its old buildings glowing softly under street lamps. She had lived here for years without really seeing it. Now everything looked different. The world seemed more vivid, more alive. When she reached her small apartment, Maria did not go straight to bed. Instead, she sat in her favorite chair and looked at the one photograph she had kept from her old life. It showed her with Andrzej and Katya, taken just months before the accident. They were laughing at something off camera, their faces full of joy. "I played tonight," Maria whispered to the photograph. "For the first time since I lost you. And it was beautiful. I hope you heard it, wherever you are." She kissed the photograph gently and set it back in its place. The next morning, Maria returned to the concert hall. She expected to pick up her mop and resume her usual routine, but Helena Berg was waiting for her with a different plan. "The board of directors met this morning," Helena said. "After last night, everyone agrees that we cannot let you go back to cleaning floors. We want to offer you a new position. You would be our artist in residence, teaching master classes and performing occasionally for special events." Maria was stunned. "I am not sure I am ready for that." "You do not have to decide now," Helena said kindly. "Take your time. Think about what you want. But know that the offer is there whenever you are ready." Maria thanked her and walked slowly through the concert hall. She passed the backstage area where she had been humiliated just 24 hours ago. She climbed the steps to the stage where she had played for the first time in 35 years. The Steinway was still there, gleaming under the morning light that streamed through high windows. Maria approached it slowly, running her fingers along its polished surface. She sat down at the bench. She placed her hands on the keys, and she began to play, not for an audience, not for fame or money or approval, just for herself, just for Andrzej and Katya, who lived on in every note she played, just for the joy of creating beauty in a world that desperately needed it. The music echoed through the empty hall, filling every corner with sound. A cleaner working nearby stopped to listen. A security guard paused in his rounds. They did not interrupt. They simply stood still and let the music wash over them. Maria played until her fingers were tired. Then she stood, closed the piano lid gently, and smiled. The silence was over. The hiding was done. After 35 years, Maria Kowalska had finally come home. She would never mop another floor. But every evening, after the concert hall emptied and the lights dimmed, she would sit at the piano and play. Sometimes for small audiences of staff and friends, sometimes for herself alone, and sometimes, in the quiet moments between notes, she would hear her daughter's laugh and her husband's applause, reminding her that love never truly dies. It just waits for us to find the courage to let it sing again.